I get into that kind of thinking, and I think that you might know what I'm talking about, which is thinking that this life is all that there is. And when we look at younger generations, we see that there is an increase in anxiety just in life. And I'm going to make a bold claim as to why that is, and that is that these younger generations have been almost exclusively told that this life is all there is. Now, there have been increasing amounts of research that tie anxiety together with use of phones and other similar devices, and I want to suggest one reason why that might be the case. I'm sure there's going to be more, but these devices for young people, for old people, are portals into this world. These things show us mainly only what's happening in this world. Whereas previous generations that grew up learning about another world, life after death, that sort of thing, they didn't spend their time looking at things like this. They actually had other access points to learn to see that their life was going to be continuous, unending. There was going to be something more than this. Well, we're going to talk about that, and yes, you guessed it, this is Conspiracy Commentaries. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike, and this is Conspiracy Commentaries. Now, that book that you should read before you die, that book is not this book. Actually, you should read the Bible. If there's another book that you're going to read before you die, this is really, really a good choice. The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard. It's more on the thick side, so you're going to actually have to do some real reading, which is good that you have landed here, not only because we try to explain this book section by section, but there's lots of videos on here about reading, and reading better books better is one of the things that we try to do on this channel. For those of you who might be new, if there are any of you, I hope there are, there's a book called Something to Say, a comprehensive bibliography of Dallas Willard by this guy, Michael Stewart Robb. And we are a non-profit institute, and this is one of the ways that we have developed to call attention to the fact that we are dependent on donations. So if you go over to sanctusinstitute.friends, you can see about how you can make a donation, and then we give these books to free to people who become friends of Sanctus and help us help other people read better books better, among all that other stuff that's on the website. Now, let's get into this book. First video on the Divine Conspiracy of this year. Some of you were a little worried that I wasn't going to make it, but here I am. We're in a large section called Death Dismissed. For me, it's on page 84. It's in chapter 3, and we're going to talk today about this section here called Carelessness about Death. Now, I think that Dallas Willard's teaching on death and on the non-reality of death for those who are friends of Jesus, not friends of Sanctus, but friends of Jesus, is some of the best that we have in contemporary times. So if you don't know what he has to say about this, you're at the right place. So carelessness about death. I just am going to break this section down into 3 things that Dallas wants to say about death. One is about the people who die. The second is about purpose, and the third is about place. So people, purpose, place, I kind of made them P's. Woohoo, I've helped you remember something. So the thing that Dallas is going to tell us about people is that for some people, death won't happen. If they were expecting or counting on death being an experience that they were going to go through, then tough luck. There's going to be something else. They're just going to have to keep on living. Dallas used to go into his philosophy classes, usually when he talked about Descartes, who they always would read, and he would say to usually entry-level philosophy students, what if it turned out that you were never going to die and there was nothing you were going to do about it, nothing you could do about it? You're never going to die and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, for Descartes, that's just an obvious fact about life. Again, for younger generations, I think the opposite has really become what we have told them through things like this, or just through the lack of access to other things like the Bible or books like this, or all these ways that previous generations have learned about life after death. And I think that if Dallas Willard was writing this kind of book 100 years ago, he wouldn't have to put this section in there, but we really need to hear this. This is something that really hasn't come home to most of us living now in the year 2024. So people, for some people, death won't happen. Purpose. And this is one of the things that I think Dallas, he's starting to push the tradition of thinking connected with Jesus by talking about an individualized eternal work in God's vast universe, that we have an individualized eternal work in God's vast universe. Well, previous generations of thinkers in the tradition of Jesus didn't think of the next life as something where we would be contributing creatively to anything. The idea was the fullness would be there, and we would just be so in awe of the fullness that there wouldn't be anything more to add. And I think Dallas has really found a theme in the scriptures that's really quite important, which is that God thinks that work and creativity, human creativity, is good, and he has made space for them. And that's one of the brilliant things about this book as a whole, and this is where it shows up with regard to the next life. The third thing to keep an eye on here is place. And for me, that's really the last chapters. I mean, the first two, people, purpose, and then the rest is about place. And he seems to think that that's something that really needs to be explained to people. This idea that God might not be able to create a place where we can live forever. And how does he put that here? In the wholeness of their personal existence. So not just a tiny little part of you lives forever, as perhaps some of the pagans have thought. I'm thinking of Aristotle and Plato, but in the wholeness of their personal existence. But there's some sort of, he's worried about an idea that maybe God can't quite do that. And I think this is one of the masterful turnarounds or counter arguments that Dallas provides in this book. He says, hey, look at this world. Yes, there's a lot of problems with this world, but is this not a very, very wonderful place? Just a very wonderful place. And if God can make this sort of place, why would he have difficulty making the next sort of place? Where's the problem? And I think that he quotes here Vladimir Nabokov, who has this wonderful description of what it might mean to meet a loved one in the next place. But there's this idea that Dallas has, and I think he's right about this. We kind of think that Jesus's ideas stand on their own, but Jesus's ideas don't stand on their own. He's talking to a people who really do believe in God. And I think that sometimes we read Jesus and we don't come from a culture that really believes in God. We don't believe in Jesus as God. And for that reason, we have a hard time really taking Jesus seriously, because we just don't think that his God is very capable. But it turns out he is. Well, I just want to say here, if you're new here, if you want to do more talk about Dallas Willard, Divine Conspiracy, you don't even have to like that book or him. We talk about all sorts of issues. Then subscribe to this channel, and even better, sign up for the almost monthly newsletter over at Sanctus Institute, and there you can hear about what we do as in Sanctus Institute, as well as, you know, it's a way that I can announce that there's some new videos coming or something like that. That's by far the best way to stay in touch with us. But subscribe to this, like these kind of videos, and thanks for being here. We will see you next time in the next section.